Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of The Breeze, Breezeway Productions' The Breeze, where we continue our coverage of this year's San Luis Obispo Film Festival, the 2021 edition. And we are excited to speak with two documentarians all the way from England who are sharing their film that is screening this year, Medicine Man, the Stan Brock story. I thought it was a wonderful film, and I'm excited to showcase it to audiences.
It was all part of creating remote area medical, and it's worked.
Such is the life of Stan Brock, a remarkable man, part cowboy, part naturalist, part lots of other things.
It was great being a cowboy.
It was here that I had an unforgettable adventure.
It was also here that I met Stan Brock, ranch manager.
It was great to host the Wild Kingdom television series. I made several movies. None of that really means a hill of beans compared with what over 92,000 volunteers are doing here in America.
Hundreds of people are camping out tonight to get free health care.
People have been waiting all the way since yesterday, in fact.
If you needed to be motivated, walk out to the parking lot and see what 1,000 people with toothaches look like.
I'm here because we lost our business. And because of that, we basically lost everything.
Who's got number one? They'll take the numbers at the desk. For number two.
Stan likes to say that he took a vow of poverty. There are no hobbies, there are no vacations. There is nothing in his life except remote area medical.
I had to pray because I didn't have no money. I didn't have nothing. I was just tapped out.
We've been able to run this organization on a shoestring. Volunteers that are willing to pay their own way.
We don't know why he does this, why he works so hard and so diligently. Stan, somehow or other, inspired us to give up 2 weekends a month.
Honey, you're a giver, and I appreciate that.
Welcome to America and the healthcare situation.
Stan spent the first part of his life only working with animals, and he didn't seem to care very much for the human race. And there's a lot of reasons why you wouldn't want to. A lot of times people are mean and callous.
I want to personally say thank you.
Como seres humanos?
For seeing us as human beings.
You know, no matter what they do, they deserve to be pain-free.
I don't get into the political issues of either party. I know people on both sides of the aisle, so to speak, that there's 50 million people out there that are not getting the care that they need. They simply can't afford it, and we need to do something about it.
Tell everybody a little bit about what the film is that you're screening this year.
Well, Medicine Man, Stan Brock's story. I'm the producer, Vladimir. We've got the director, Michael Angell, with us as well. And Medicine Man is really a film about one man's journey to find meaning in his life through giving of himself. Stan Brock was a really larger-than-life character. He was a British-born Amazonian cowboy, having gone out to Guyana as a teenager and somehow finding his way running the world's biggest cattle ranch at the time, way out in the bush. And he was discovered in the late 60s by an American TV producer that somehow convinced him to come out to the US and become a wildlife TV star on a program called Mutual Omaha's Wild Kingdom. After doing that for some time, Stan ended up doing some rather questionable action movies with directors like Ivan Tors, until in the 80s, he sort of reevaluated his life and felt that he wanted to do something more meaningful. And his idea was to fly doctors out to places around the world that he'd been, like South America, like Africa, Southeast Asia, where people simply didn't have access to healthcare, particularly in the remote regions. And after doing a couple of clinics to remote parts of Mexico, they realized that the level of access for a lot of people in the United States was just as bad as it was in these places where sometimes you would be days away from a doctor on foot. So they started holding these pop-up field hospitals all over the United States. And this organization grew and grew and grew because of the huge demand. And it continues to this day. It's called Remote Area Medical, and they operate in numerous states. And essentially the way it functions is they get a bunch of volunteer doctors together, they get the equipment, and they set up these clinics in stadiums, parking lots, anywhere they can. And literally thousands of people will turn up and sleep in their cars and camp overnight just to make sure they get seen for, often very basic treatments, healthcare checkups, minor surgeries, dental, vision, but they simply don't have the possibility to get that kind of care anywhere else.
Yeah, seeing Stan put such an amazing organization together was really uplifting. To see people come from all over and then get the treatment that they've been needing for so long, but they can't afford healthcare, or they're not covered under any insurance programs or things like that. And that when you guys went to these pop-ups to showcase how many people in different states, you were in Virginia, and I saw that the governor came out to greet him and thank him, say anything you need. You were in St. Louis for a little bit, so you traveled all over the place with him. My question is this is a man among men, as I've learned about his story, from being a cowboy and a wrangler to a philanthropist and an aviator and so many more. How were you able to connect with him, and then him put his trust within you to make this documentary?
Frankly, I have no idea at all. I mean, touchy-feely filmmakers are not the sort of people that Stan likes to hang out with. Are you talking to me about aviation? Are you talking to me about horses? Are you talking to me about saving people in desperate healthcare need? Like these are the things that he was really passionate about. Mm-hmm. Somehow we had some sort of connection that went a bit beyond the norm. I'm not quite sure what it was. I was 35 when I met him. He was 72. He was looking me up and down saying, who's this oik that's just flown in from London, asking me all these questions that I've already been asked 100 times before. I think Britishness helped. Maybe like he saw some sort of connection, like I'm also British and I've also traveled a few places in the world before, but not done anything when I got there that was actually beneficial to anybody. But I think he respected our persistence, because we kept coming back, and like we didn't have a ton of finance. We had some finance, but not a lot. And I think he actually saw some sort of parallel in the ethos that we had, in that we were doing the film not to make a lot of money, with volunteers, and beg, steal and borrow. You do what you can to make ends meet and get to the next shoot. And that was kind of similar to the ethos that he'd had in starting RAM. You had to get people motivated for the cause, bring in the volunteers, make it work, and hope for a better day when you can grow into a bigger thing. Yeah. Maybe he kind of saw that we were on the same kind of mission in a way.
Yeah, I see that he definitely put his trust within you guys to make the film, and the documentary was very well put together. I like the aspect of when you put the American presidents in a montage of trying to get healthcare through within the American politics. So you really dived into that side of the things as well.
Dive in, but dive out really quickly.
Yeah. You touched on it to show the fight that's been going on.
Yeah, you don't want this to be like making children eat vegetables. That's the challenge, isn't it? Like we started off when we thought, God, it was 2012 really when we started filming, and we thought, oh wow, God, people are fatigued with the healthcare topic already, and Obamacare was just coming in. So we thought we've got to kind of keep this emotional as much as possible. We want to touch on the politics. We don't want to get dragged in, much like Stan himself, who always kind of stayed apolitical. He thought that was the best strategy.
Yeah. And you definitely did. You had segments where you showcased the story of his life, the adventures that he's been on, wrestling anacondas in the wilds. That's pretty nuts. I mean, the man also, his movie career that he did a couple of films of doing amazing karate sequences in like the 70s and 80s, and like this guy is just such a character. But you know what he's been able to create and to help so many people off of the donations that are coming in, and he's like, well, you know, I'm not really a PR guy, and I don't like talking with people and stuff like this, but this whole thing is like the best thing that can be created to showcase his organization. You know, he went from the place that was falling apart structurally into a beautiful new building. So to see that things were growing and it was taking off and people want to help with this was a beautiful thing. So while you were with him along this journey, did you see that all of these things were picking up while you were shooting? Yeah.
Yeah, I did. I could see, I mean, when they moved to that new premises, I could really see, you know, that was the fulfillment of the dream that he'd started in 1985 with the formation of RAM. I was also sort of concerned that somehow the original can-do spirit of the volunteers and their, you know, just their one pickup truck, and I was sort of concerned that maybe some of that kind of DIY spirit might get lost. And you could kind of see it with Stan as well. Like the organization grew, got more staff, got, you know, more, and I think he accepted that as part of the process. You can't keep it as a kind of mom and pop business forever. It's got to grow into this bigger thing to scale up and provide for more people and alleviate more need.
Yeah.
So he was really, really happy about that.
No, he was saying
he
that
wasn't
he couldn't
kind
get
of
people
dewy-eyed about the past.
He couldn't get people from other states to fly in, even though they'd be willing to, because of you know, like a hands-off policy, which is just really unfortunate. The thing he was saying was
which persists to this day, actually, unless the state has actually made an exception. Under normal legal practice, it is not possible to practice outside the. You can't deliver free care.
One thing just to say, just to kind of on in addition to that was, you know, it should be noted, as much as the organization's grown and expanded and, you know, has capacity to do a lot more now, it's still amazing how much they are guided by the fundamental principles that Stan lived and worked by. You know, they're not corporatized in the sense that they're not on the front lines, because they're very much are. For example, the current CEO, Jeff Eastman, every time there's a clinic, Jeff's out there, you know, at the forefront, calling out the numbers at 5 a.m., the same as Stan was. And I think that's really refreshing, because what made Stan really stand out is the fact that, you know, he was a doer. He kind of always put his, well, not his money, but his actions where his mouth is. He didn't just talk about these things. And kind of when you touched on that political sequence, that was one of the guiding lights really in this film. It's to, as far as the healthcare was concerned, is to position it as a human issue, not a political issue, because things like that, it should transcend politics, really.
Yeah.
That's what Stan always believed and said. That's why he didn't want to get involved with one side and the other side and, you know, turning it into a political football. He went into Washington, he spoke to everybody, and he said, this is what we're seeing every week. You've got to ask yourself that question: is this right? You know, can you go to sleep at night and say, yeah, that's right, I'm happy with this happening? And most people can't. So I think that's a really important message for us in the film.
Yeah, you kept it very human also, because you had segments of the people that he was treating where you showed what their lifestyle was like. One guy living out of his van, saying that his house was foreclosed and he needs to get his tooth out. Another woman that also needed dentistry work, who was saying how tough of a time it's been for her. How was it like when you were working with these individuals that were receiving treatment from him, when you had to follow them around for a little bit of the film?
Well, you felt like a bit of a car crash chaser. You know, you're really worried that what you're doing here is focusing on the difficulties this person's having and kind of making them feel a lot worse. So you've got to be really sensitive about the way you approach people, especially complete strangers in queues, you know, at night before these events happen, and make it clear where you're coming from as a representative of the media, which doesn't always have the greatest reputation. Just making sure that they are comfortable talking to you and bringing you their story. And what we found was, after speaking to people, they'd sort of point out two things. Like, one, I want the world to know that there's people like me in need in America, and that's kind of wrong. And two, I want to speak to you because I want the world to know that what Stan does and this organization it does is just life-savingly awesome.
Yeah.
So that, that's my motivation. So a lot of people said, don't worry, I'm all right. Okay. I'm in a bit of pain here. I haven't had a lot of sleep, but no, I do want to do this interview because I want to get this out.
Yeah. Okay. So tell us a little bit about his organization. Where can people go to find it? The name of the organization, a website, where can people check out things like that? We hope to include a trailer or stills or things that were provided to us in this interview so we can showcase that as well. Where can people go to find out more about Stan's work?
Well, the best thing to do to find out about Stan, obviously, is to watch our films. So that's first and foremost. But we have a website, medicinemanstanbrock.com, and we are active across social media. But if you want to engage with RAM, and I encourage you to, not just in terms of providing donations, but also if you wanted to volunteer and actually bring RAM to your community, or even help support some of the legislation they're trying to push for, which makes it easier for volunteer doctors to cross state lines, and you should visit ramusa.org, and you'll find out everything you need to know there about how you can become engaged with them and also help to continue Stan's mission.
So is there anything that you guys would like to say to the San Luis Obispo Film Festival organization for the screening this year?
Well, San Luis Obispo is actually our West Coast premiere. So
nice.
We are so happy to have those guys there showcasing our work. And, we hope that it can help us to grow the exposure of the film and ultimately get Stan's message out to as many people as possible, because it is ultimately a message about how American people can come together to work on common goals, so it seems right for the times.
It is.
Thank you for having us, and thank you for watching, for anyone that's watched the film.
Of course. We're excited to showcase Medicine Man, the Stan Brock story. And thank you so much, Paul Michael Angell and Vladimir Daniel, for speaking with me today. And we'll have more coming up about the San Luis Obispo Film Festival on The Breeze. So again, gentlemen, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you.